Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today I am going to be showing you more ways with your nesting dies. First of all, I'm going to be using a couple of main ingredients really, keeping it simple today, but one of them is going to be this background stamp. This is the Delicate Blossoms from the Happy Camper release with Simon Says stamp, and this one, I just love this background stamp, but these beautiful nesting dies, these are called Modern Teardrops. Now, I love a good nesting die. These ones I love in particular when they are so close together. This gives us lots of really fun options for techniques with nesting dies, but today I just want to show you another way of which you can use these shapes to create a beautiful card. So we are going to be stamping this beautiful big background stamp. Now this is a big background, and of course being a photopolymer instead of the like a red rubber is often a little bit easier, and I can stamp this without using the platform. Just with this being the photopolymer, I find it easier to use a stamping platform. If you have a stamping block big enough, that would be fine too. If you're using the platform, it often gives you the opportunity to restamp it if you missed a spot. For this, I'm going to be using some Tim Holtz watercolor paper today, some cardstock. I'm going to be doing some coloring with this, and just before I've made my decisions, I don't know what media I'm going to be coloring with. So I'm going to use some watercolor cardstock just to make it easier for later on and to keep my options nice and wide. I am stamping this with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which is just a beautiful, crisp, fine detail black stamping ink, which I love. Of course, this is going to be a pigment ink, so it means the ink sits on top of your paper for longer than it would, for example, with a dye ink. And so this also gives us that opportunity for that open air time where we can use embossing powder with it. If you are just using a dye ink and you are stamping, then absolutely go ahead. If you've got it in a stamping platform, stamp it with your dye ink. So for example, your color or your black, whatever ink you are using. And then, without shifting the paper or your stamp, because it's in your stamping platform, and then stamp on top with some sticky embossing ink. For example, a Versamark sticky embossing ink pad, and then of course that is going to give you that ability to add the embossing powder, because I like to take away the option for me to smudge my work later on. Of course, depending on which inks you use, some of them are safe to use with alcohol markers, some of them are safe for watercoloring, but honestly, I just prefer to, it's like self-insuring, and using that step where I use the clear embossing powder to emboss my image just means that I am not going to get in a pickle later on. Now, these beautiful teardrop shapes, I am going to be cutting a couple out. I don't want to have to color in too much more than I need to, so that's why I have cut the shapes out first of all. And then I'm going to take a piece of acetate and cut this down to be the size that I want on my card front, because I'm going to have these elements floating, and that is going to be where the acetate comes in. I can add the foam tape behind these images, and this will give them that nice elevated dimensional effect without having to do all of the guessing around placement and where I should cut them. First of all, you'll see what I mean in just a minute. Anyhow, when it comes to colouring, as I said, the world's your oyster. You have so many options for these. These are just, this beautiful background stamp is just a big floral image with a little bit of foliage in there as well. So I'm going to use a couple of the green inks, which are the Simon Says stamp ones. These are the mini cubes, but these are going to work just fine. Then I'm going to use some Gina K, a couple of sort of pinks, I guess. Now, we usually don't have sets of things, but the Gina K light, medium, and dark carnation inks are fantastic for layering. So I actually do have all three of those. I'm only going to use the light and the dark today. And then of those three, there is the kale, cabbage, and artichoke inks that are the green ones, just because I don't have really much range in my Gina K green inks. Maybe that's something I need to save up and fix, but for these ones, it doesn't matter. We can mix and match companies. You use what you've got. When it comes to this, we're essentially turning these inks into watercolors. I've just got a little palette there, which is an acrylic block, and I've got some water on there, which I am picking up to dilute some of the colors to make them lighter, and that way I don't have to have every single color going, I don't have to have every single lighter, darker, medium, of them going, but I can just use the water to choose the strength of the color that I would like down. So we can layer them up that way as well. It is handy to have a couple, I would say, to get that deeper, darker look, but absolutely I have watered these down quite significantly. And I also want some of the flowers to look, like there's some darker and lighter elements to them, like the light is catching them. I am no artist at all when it comes to these sorts of beautiful things. And so I just do my best, but that's okay because my best gets me through and I'm happy enough with the results. So I'm doing really, really simple. As I said, there's a little bit of the green foliage, which I just add a good amount of water and then pop the green down the bottom, and kind of it moves a little bit itself. Remember, these are on watercolor cardstock, so this is also helping me out a lot. If you don't have these inks, of course, then you could actually use watercolor pencils, you could use alcohol markers, you can use coloring pencils, whatever medium you feel comfortable with using, then go for gold. Something like some lunar pastes, if you watered them down, those are beautiful, and you could add in some sparkly elements over top. Lots of really fun techniques that you can do. And the coloring here, I know that I'm going to be using, I want that teardrop shape, so that's what I'm focusing on having here. And so I know that what I'm going to need is going to be the bit that is towards the end of the teardrop. Of course, I have cut these two shapes in half, and so I know that I don't need to do the coloring right to the very edges. Then I'm used the Hero Arts Infinity rectangle die set, which is just a handy nesting rectangle. And this is what I mean. These are really, really close together as well. These are Hero Arts sets. And so I am able to make a fairly skinny, slim frame to frame up my artwork here. So this is just how I go about it. I pop a couple of pieces of low-tack tape sticky side up, and then I pop one frame down onto the sticky, the two pieces, and then the second one I line it up inside of the first one. Sticky side up, and so cutting side of the dies up as well. Then I'm going to pop these onto some black licorice cardstock, a nice deep, dark, beautiful black cardstock, and this is going to be a decent weight. I think this is from Lawn Fawn, so I think it is maybe a 100 or 110 pounds, so it's a good weight because we are creating quite a slim frame, so you don't want your cardstock to be too flimsy, otherwise you might have a little bit of trouble keeping that shape. But you can see how everything is starting to come together here, and the black really sets off that beautiful bright color in our watercoloring there. I am going to take some double-sided tape. This one is from Pink and Main, just a really strong double-sided adhesive. Using dry adhesive is my personal preference when it comes to attaching things to acetate. I feel like it works better and quicker, definitely quicker, than using like a wet liquid or liquid glue or something like that. So I am going to eyeball these. You could measure. I know that they're not perfectly even, but they're even enough for me, and I'm happy enough. And this is where with the nesting dies, you can play around with placement. Even if you just had circles, you could of course add these on in all sorts of different ways, and you could have some whole circles as well, of course. You could do this with your rectangles, with your squares, with your stars, anything that you have in your nesting dies. But these beautiful teardrop shapes have that stunning edge to them. It looks very elegant in my opinion. And I think what would look even more beautiful, which I think I'll try, is doing this exact technique with the watercoloring. I love the colors, but I'm going to layer up with a black matting layer of cardstock and sort of have 3 or 4 of them like a little continuous image, but with the matting layers in between. I can't wait to give that one a go. Anyhow, I'm going to add my frame on the outside here. Now the frame has just got liquid glue behind it because it's sitting mainly on top of cardstock, which I'm happy enough about. And then this is where I'm going to put the foam tape to create that floating look. Now, as I said, I could have done this all on the card, but this would make it harder to have that white frame going around it on our card base, using the acetate is just a nice easy trick to have these all floating and do it all in one. Now, using the same teardrops, I'm going to create a little space for the sentiment. I think that's going to be just a nice easy option. You could get some sort of tag, or you could just get a circle punch to cut it out. And you could either do like a banner that would cover up less of the center there, but I think this time round, I think I'm just going to go right in the center, but I'll have a think about it. This is a gorgeous little stamp set called U2. This one packs a lot of power because there are so many options jammed onto here. This stamp set is absolutely filled to the brim. I quite like that idea. I love this nice big bold U. There's a couple of, fancier, beautiful U's on there, and then a couple of more bold options. I'm actually going to cut up one of the little sub-sentiments, which is just fine. We can pop it back together. As I said, when I cut stamps, I always make sure to do one nice clean cut so that I can make sure I can piece them back together easily as they were originally intended. But this way, instead of having them side by side, I can stack them and it's going to fit on my little my die cut much easier. So I've got this nice big bold U, and as I said, there's a couple of bolder U's on there, and this makes way for more techniques. Won't be in this video, but I was thinking about this when stamping them. Imagine, you can use your Posca pens or some white gel pens or something on top to give this a good amount of texture. So I can't wait to give that one a go as well. Stamp out the big main U, and then I did have these together on my acrylic block there, but actually I kind of need to stamp them out a little bit separately just so that I can get them stacked exactly how I wanted them. And this is, "You are a stellar human." I really, really like that sentiment. So I've also cut out another one in the black cardstock, and this is going to create a really nice matching layer. It really just, you can see how with the white on white here, it just sinks into the background a little too much. Now, I am trying to cover up the least amount of the background that I could, but honestly, I just felt like it sunk into the background too much. So even though this wasn't my original plan, and you are covering up a little more of that teardrop, that's okay, because as we create these cards, they evolve and the ideas change and things work out how you wanted them to, or they might not. And so it's okay to change direction a little bit, but I still have those beautiful teardrops in the background. And then more importantly, it's sort of emphasized by the beautiful teardropped shape that we have put our sentiment on, that goes right there in the center. So crisp black, white, and those reds and pinks. I really, really love this with a little bit of green to break it up. A super simple, easy card to use your beautiful nesting dies. And of course, I will have all of the supplies linked below in case you are interested. But other than that, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate this very, very much. And I hope you have enjoyed today's video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.